and we don't take any money from the government to do the work that we do. If you want to get a YouTube membership that supports our channel and it puts you on our eyeballs first, it gets you access to exclusive perks, including some fun little emojis, which Yankee, our social media guy, assures me are indeed fun. Again, no exaggeration. Let's bring our guests on, though. Enough of me. You can listen to me talk 5 days a week. These guys are only here today for now. We've got David Knight Legg. He's the chairman of Elements Capital Advisors, and Jeremy Borg, the political reporter for the Western Standard. Guys, thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
I'm excited to hear what you guys have to say. Let's get right into the news. Mark Carney tells us that he is colonizing Edmonton with bad ideas this week. He and his colleagues are in Edmonton for the National Caucus meeting. Strange choice. He says he's focused on the work ahead to build major projects. I've got opinions about that, and empower Canadians with safer neighborhoods, high-paying careers, and a stronger economy. I'm going to go to David first. David, what do you think about the choice of Edmonton to hold this caucus meeting?
They have to do something that looks like they support Alberta. And unfortunately, because they've got policies that have been so antagonistic to Alberta for a decade, they're left only with these very superficial optics choices, like holding a caucus meeting in Edmonton. It's embarrassing. Edmonton in Alberta, we call it Redmonton because they've got enough Liberals and NDP people that depend entirely on government funding that they can maintain some support up there. But other than that, Mark Carney had one of the, I think, most gracious entrances into politics, and that everybody wanted him to be able to continue what he was doing in the election, which was cutting the Liberal policies and introducing and running on conservative policies. And if he had maintained that momentum, cut C-48, cut C-69, gotten rid of the emissions cap, and done some of the fundamental things that would have unlocked Alberta's growth engine, he'd be in very good shape right now. Unfortunately, the bloom is off the rose, and he is now in trouble. I think deep trouble politically, along with his friends Starmer and Macron over in Europe. He continues to make fundamental foreign policy mistakes. He continues to fall for the European center-left ideological WEF mindset around immigration, crime, bail reform, debt funding, running deficits into historic highs. And the country is slipping off a cliff right now in terms of its economic potential. The only economy that has the potential to lead Canada out of this problem is Alberta's. Alberta's ahead of everybody else in every economic indicator. Don't believe this weird talking point about our unemployment. We have the second highest employment aside from Saskatchewan. The unemployment rate is a result of the ratio of the number of people that are actively looking for work. In most parts of Canada, people have given up on looking for work by large numbers. The highest employed cities are Edmonton and Calgary, aside from Saskatoon. Alberta is leading us out of this. We get the highest net income, the youngest demographics. It's the #1 place anybody that immigrates to this country that wants to get a job comes to. So we've got the highest net immigration, foreign immigration, the highest net investment, and we're leading the country on FDI. So Alberta's the only hope he's got. It's smart to run it in Edmonton, but the optics have to give way to facts. And I think his meeting with Danielle Smith, he's going to certainly get that pointed out to him based on what I saw from the Premier's terrific ad on what Ottawa needs to do to get out of the way.
Yeah, I listened to her speak about that over the weekend at the Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference. Let's go to Jeremy. Jeremy, he says in this post, Mark Carney does, that he is there to get major projects built. But there are no pipeline proposals on the table because we still have the anti-pipeline law standing in the field like a scarecrow, chasing away major investors. And we heard, I think it was yesterday, the day before, Mark Carney say, we're going to decarbonize the economy. Well, that absolutely means no more oil and gas projects or major oil and gas projects going forward. So I feel like this is just a bunch of absolute lip service, and C5 is going to turn into the Green Slush Fund 2.0.
So Carney is going to be meeting with Premier Smith later today. And I think we're going to see them discuss Bill C-48, which is the oil tanker moratorium, and Bill C-69, which is the No More Pipelines bill. There's nothing on the docket. We're not going to see anything in the near future, but I think we're going to see at least brought up. Obviously, we're not going to be able to see the internal conversations between Carney and Smith, but I would love to see a few weeks in the future, a few months in the future, how Carney's policy changes, especially because recently he's been adopting more conservative ideology and what he's been putting forward.
Oh, I think you froze there, Jeremy. I'll go to Lise. Good news for Saskatchewan, I guess. Saskatoon is not a hellscape. But what do you think about Carney bringing the clown show on the road to Edmonton?
Well, if you listen to Saskatoon's mayor, you would rescind that last comment, Sheila Gunn Reid. But it is a little bit of theater that Mark Carney is playing right now, and that pipeline projects aren't being advanced as part of his new green decarbonizing energy approach to things. What happens at this caucus retreat is going to be fleshed out in the public in about 4 weeks, because we've seen enough of these announcements where these guys get together all in one room to make bad decisions. It takes about 4 weeks for those things to get fleshed out to the public. They should be broadcast live as far as I'm concerned. But when he talks about making Canada an energy superpower, he's not talking about oil and gas. He's not talking about coal. He's talking about nuclear energy via Brookfield's investment in Saskatchewan uranium. He's talking about projects that are going to line the pockets of Liberal insiders and tie Western Canada to Ottawa for the next 60 years. That's what they're going to be talking about in Edmonton. And none of it serves the people of Western Canada.
Olivia told me my audio was a little bit distorted, so I tried to tweak that. Hopefully it's better. Olivia, you can let me know. Let's keep... Okay, perfect. She says it's good. I had to turn it up. Now we've got Sean Fraser, who is failing absolutely in another portfolio. He's the Minister of Justice and Attorney General, but he's also the MP for Central Nova, which is why he's making this announcement. And he is saying, is your business hit by tariffs? We're opening relief funds with grants and loan options for Atlantic Canada. Now, I'm not entirely sure what he means by tariffs, because I don't know which ones he's talking about, because Atlantic seafood producers were hit by the same tariffs as Western canola producers, and the Liberals don't seem to care anything about that. So we've got grants and loans and help for seafood producers, but we don't have anything really coming by way of the canola producers. Not that the canola producers want it. And I say this as a canola producer. We just want no tariffs from China to protect the EV industry in Doug Ford's Ontario. I'll go to David. Your thoughts on this?
Yeah, look, the Liberals have painted themselves into a corner because they don't have a coherent economic strategy. So because they don't have a coherent economic strategy, they've run on an anti-American, instinctive, left progressive idea of being constantly against America. And it's only them and China that have run this retributive tariff strategy that has destroyed the Canadian economy. So our economy actually went backwards by 1.6%, while the American economy went forwards by 3.3% in the last quarter. We can't take much more of this as a country. We depend on the United States for 77% of all of our export GDP. They only depend on us for 17% of theirs. And of that 17%, most of it has secondary markets they can instantly transfer to. So if you're shipping bourbon or frozen orange juice, that can go anywhere. If you're shipping crude, you're shipping agriculture, because we only have the United States to send it to. So they have all the cards. They've known they have all the cards. Carney's a smart enough guy to know they have all the cards, but for these performative optics reasons to keep his antagonistic hard green base happy and anti-Trump, he continues to play games with the Canadian economy, which is why we got painted into a corner on tariffing Chinese EVs, which is insanity. right? First of all, if you like the idea of EVs, why wouldn't you want the best made, least expensive ones to be in Canada, right?
Right.
This is totally incoherent, and it's costing our economy by punishing one of our largest, most important exports, to which we also have no secondary markets, canola. But the other side of the coin for liberal operating philosophy, sadly, seems to be a deep geographic commitment to anyone that they can reliably count on for votes,
Yes.
and deep antagonism to anybody that they can't rely on for votes. And so Alberta, which has the hottest economy in the country, which has the lowest taxes in the country, which has the highest net income, which has the most growth, which is actually growing a real economy against the grain of all this antagonism from the feds over 10 years, right? Especially after we kicked out the NDP and removed their policies, reversed them, and cut taxes. So now as we grow, and as the Premier does a great job of connecting with the Americans on realistic, economically coherent terms, like these feds should have started doing back in January, they're in trouble. The Liberals are in trouble. And so what do? They do what Liberals do. They borrow more money, they go into deeper deficit, and they start giving people money from the government like a nanny state does. And when they do that based on whichever minister happens to have the most threat against losing Liberal seats, and they start to parcel it out as political favors, because that's how they see the economy, something the Liberal government can run centrally, use to control Canadians on the basis of how they vote politically. And it's sad. It denigrates the economy. The good news is Alberta will lead the country out of this. The bad news is it's going to take the Liberals another 3 to 4 months to figure it out. But I predict Mark Carney will go down very, very quickly with this economy, because he just hasn't shown the ability to rein in the difference between Stephen Guilbeault and Tim Hodgson. And his inability to do that, his inability to manage the smart people in his caucus that are trying to build something and join to actually build this country, and the ridiculous leftist, socialist, hard left in his caucus. The fact he's trying to accommodate those people, and he's accommodating complete losers like Chrystia Freeland, Melanie Jolie, people have destroyed this economy, and he's maintaining them, right? That fact means his days are numbered. So I think he's on the same track Macron is, Starmer is. I think we're going to see the center left in Europe, and eventually in Canada, and finally with Albanese in Australia, lose to a more populist, smart, responsive, conservative philosophy. I mean, that's what I'm hoping for. That's what I'm working for here. But I think you're going to see this replaced. And what's happened is Trump has, basically pushed, mugged by reality, the center left in Europe and Canada by just reminding them you can't get away without paying for military anymore. You can't just tweet what you think, like Carney did again yesterday in the most embarrassing way about what happened at Cross. You can't just constantly cross us and not expect that we're going to ultimately make you pay the bill that you've been operating like a sad trust fund country on. And Carney's unprepared to do any of the work that has to be done. So I think that's what we're seeing right now. And I think it's sad. I think they're dividing the country in multiple ways. And this is one of the ways they divide the country. He hasn't even spoken to, I haven't seen him on a canola farm or speaking to canola farmers. And he still wants the government to pick and choose projects. Picking Churchill over Energy East or Northern Gateway is insane. And anybody in the industry knows this, but this is what happens if you have a bureaucrat, former bureaucrat, looking for optics constantly to prove that he can do something. Not a businessman, never has been. He's always been an advisor. He's never run anything in his life. The ESG green investment train into Brookfield, appointed to this honorific role. This guy is not a guy that knows how to build business, hire people, fire people, or deal with reality. And I think he's in over his head, and he's got a great team. The Liberals frustrate me because they're so much better than us conservatives at optics and communications, sadly. But that runs out eventually, and it's running out now. What Canadians are experiencing on the street, in the home, in their checkbooks, not working. And it's made the whole country across the board poorer than Mississippi, except for Alberta, in Canada in only 10 years. They've destroyed the wealth of this country. Everybody knows it's not working. They know it every day. And the Liberals, instead of doing the things that would work, are busy trying to manage the optics around how people feel about what's not working and trying to blame it on things that are actually within their control. So I think, I think what Sean Fraser is doing is saying he's just a poster boy for continued failure, immigration, not justice. Like, I can't believe these people. These are people you wouldn't even hire, and yet have these positions where the CBC takes them seriously. and they manage by this NGO cabal to get themselves nice soft landings when they're done destroying the country. But I'd love to see some accountability at the ballot box sooner than later.
You know, I don't know if we're going to see that until the NDP gets their act together. I mean, yes, Carney, I think is going to flame out sooner rather than later, because he doesn't have the riz, as the kids say, to ride as far as Trudeau did. Trudeau is an idiot and incompetent, but some people, I didn't see it, but I think Eastern women saw him as charismatic. And Carney has none of that. He's just just a weaponized nerd. And so, Jeremy, I want to ask you about that. I don't think that we see any sort of hope in Canada until the NDP return to some sort of equilibrium, because they've gone so far off the rails that they've collapsed in on themselves. And I think Stephen Harper's best friend some days was a very normal, albeit socialist, Thomas Mulcair. I don't think I would agree with Thomas Mulcair on much of anything except maybe Justin Trudeau's competence, but he served as a normal foil to the Liberals, dividing the progressive side. But we don't have that, and we haven't had that in a very long time. So the progressive vote just coalesces around the Liberals regardless of how terrible they are.
So I think we're seeing, especially with the NDP leadership race coming up, the NDP is swinging significantly farther to the left than even under Jagmeet Singh. Yves Engler is one of the candidates who's already announced he's running, and he is a quote-unquote voice against capitalism.
Oh, no.
Other options are Heather McPherson, Avi Lewis, who are known far left, how do I put it, icons in this country.
I was going to say anti-Semites, but I'll take that one too.
Anti-Semites as well.
Okay.
Avi Lewis has been very, very supportive of the pro-Palestine movement in Canada. Same with Heather McPherson. We saw Heather McPherson try to promote anti-Semitism by going and getting a halloumi salad and posting it on social media. And I think we're going to see increased division between the opposition, especially because the NDP is so fractured right now. They don't know what direction they're going. So we're seeing a strong Conservative Party with grounded values and a united caucus. And then the Bloc is doing what the Bloc does. They're focusing on Quebec rights. They're not going to align with the Conservative Party on anything unless it supports Quebec. And the other opposition parties are absolutely devastated after last election. And I think hoping that we're going to see a united opposition in Canada is at least a long way away.
Lise, I'm going to go to you on this, just taking it back to the disparity between the seafood producers, the steel industry versus canola, because these seafood producers are hit with the exact same tariffs that the canola producers are, but there's really, I mean, Scott Moe is going to China, or is in China, I can't remember, to deal with this. Alberta government has really advocated against these tariffs and actually put the millstone around the neck where it deserves to be, and that's on the federal government's protectionist policies for Doug Ford's failing industries. But we constantly hammer home, like, the canola industry is twice the size of the steel industry. It's not treated that way because I think, as David rightly points out, there's nothing to lose for the Liberals if this major key Western industry is destroyed. Canola farmers, and I speak for myself and my family, we don't vote Liberal. So what's the loss?
Right on the nose, right on the nose. And increasingly, Westerners are acknowledging that every resource that's doled out to a Liberal voter in Eastern Canada is a resource that's not made available to the Westerners that earned the money in the first place. And we can't, so I just want to be fair to the federal government of Canada. They are doing something about canola tariffs in China because they sent a babysitter along with Scott Moe to go to China. It's not our federal agriculture minister, okay? It's not the guy that can actually make some decisions and help this trade dispute along. But they did send our former ag minister, who is tagging along on the trip, and I think we can count upon them to put a grenade in whatever plan Scott Moe has in negotiating directly with the Chinese.
Let's keep going ahead on crime and affordability issues, the perennial issues of Liberal mismanagement. This poll today, it's in the National Post, more than half of Canadians no longer feel safe in their neighborhoods. 87% of respondents felt they had a right to use reasonable force against a home intruder, which is in stark contrast to the aforementioned incompetent Sean Fraser, who said that it is not the Wild West out there. Well, it is, but in the Wild West, you can defend yourself against a home invader. And like, it's getting to the point where I am slightly worried about vigilantism, because I think we're getting to a point in society where, and I think even the police feel that way, that the court system and the legal system does not have the safety of Canadians in mind anymore. I'll go to David.
Yeah, look, there is a huge divide between Canadians that live in the real world and the advanced critical theory judicial class and center left progressive unrealists that have created the worst crime problem in the country's history. Almost every major measure of crime is up significantly. Some measures up 300%. Things like extortion are up 450%. Violent crime across the board. I think violent crime is now 57% higher. I don't know if you follow this, but in the United States, this beautiful Ukrainian woman, she looks like an angel, right? Irina Zaritska. She was murdered. The press tried not to cover it at all because it didn't fit the narrative they wanted. And then the video of her murder has been released. And this has completely changed in the last 24 hours. There is for instance, Elon Musk just said, I'll put $1 million into a fund that was created to paint her mural on urban centers, on the walls of urban centers. That was matched by Andrew Tate out of Romania, who's an influencer that, you know, has big reach with young men. The fury about what happened and how it happened, and the fact that you can see the whole thing played out. I watched the thing. It is so sickening. And you know, we don't have video of this man protecting his 4-year-old daughter with his life, being shot dead by an intruder. We don't have that video in Canada. We don't have the videos of the multiple sort of you know, aggressively criminal acts that have been taking place. But we do have a media that doesn't want to talk about it.
Yeah.
And it's because that media is bought into the same lie that our judicial system is bought into, which is the same lie that our center-left politicians bought into. When they changed the bail laws, they changed the criminal laws. And what they're trying to do is this fake empathy from the left. It has decided that people's identity is all tied up in their sexuality. It's all tied up in their ethnicity. It's all tied up in their racial background. It's all tied up in their social economic background. And they use this leftist empathetic notion of what the law is to commit the worst injustices. And what you have now is good people trying to live peacefully, trying to protect their children. Women don't want to walk down the streets in these cities anymore. They've allowed open drug markets to take place. They've allowed people that are out of their minds on drugs to wander past children. And the result is chaos. And I think, you know, so, and this has happened in Europe under the same failed philosophy in France, which is related to the Islamist invasion of France, which has taken place under asylum and immigration fraud. It's happening across the UK, it's happening in Canada, and it's happening in a different way in the USA. And so I think when we're talking about this idea of personal security, safety, security is the #1 thing that every government is actually required to do for its citizens. It's actually the most important thing. It's the first thing. It's the reason why we give governments the right to stand up armies and have the ability to shoot people dead. That's called law enforcement. Or to kill people and break things in other countries. That's called the military. And the reason we give those rights to government is because governments have to enforce security for their people using ultimate force. And when governments fail to do that single thing, that reshapes the entire purpose of government. And this seditious theory law theory has broken the laws in Canada, and it's broken the way the judiciary responds to law in Canada, the UK, France, and the United States, where these arrogant, entitled judges that don't have to live with the consequences of the hell that they unleash in other people's lives continue to make decisions that they feel fully unaccountable for, and they hide behind this veneer of you don't know me, and so nobody's going to tie. Look what happened with Alberta's trans laws. This judge in Calgary has decided she's not elected by anybody. She's just a leftist that feels like it's okay for people to tell little children that they might have been born in the wrong body, which is a terrible lie. It's a destructive lie. It kills the life options for these kids, many of whom are desperate kids, many of whom are going through experiences that are hard for them to square with how they feel, what they want, right? And so the public has to decide what we want to do about this issue. And so we elect people, those people debate those issues in legislatures, they come up with laws, they pass those laws, and what happens? Some judge arrogates unto herself the ability to say, I don't agree. Why? Because in the cocktail party circuit of her and her little set of friends, she wants to be patted on the back for standing up for whatever the hard left version of telling a child they're born in the wrong body is, which is sickening, right? But it's not just sickening because that philosophy is depraved and wrong. It's sickening because that philosophy is so depraved and wrong that everybody else thinks, like in huge numbers, 80% plus, that actually boys shouldn't be hurting girls playing girls sports because the biology just isn't, and the physics just isn't plausible. But she's decided, because she wants a pat on the head and exists in this little elite community that wants to feel good about themselves and has this sort of sickened version of empathy based on a false view of people's identity, that they can twist the law for their own political purposes. It's destructive, but it's seditious. It's addictive to people that are in positions of judicial power to fall for this stuff. What just happened with this Ukrainian girl who looks like an angel that was killed by this guy who'd been arrested 14 times and let out by a magistrate that was unqualified to even hold the position? She never even finished a law program, right? They're now uncovering that she is, like so many of these DEI hires, totally unqualified to be who she is or do what she did. And the consequences are the death of somebody that actually escaped Mariupol and was working a couple jobs and was doing her best to make a new life in America, and got slaughtered by the incompetence and the vanities of this judicial class. We see it in Canada all the time with fentanyl. We see it with the attacks on innocent people in their homes. We see it with police saying their hands are tied. Police in Edmonton saying, you cannot let this guy off the hook for murdering this child, right? And what's happening? So I think we have a cultural legal theory problem that we have to address. We have to address it in law, but we also have to address it by naming, shaming, and holding accountable people who are doing things they have no right to do. These judges do not have any right to override the system that we've created to allow the expression of democratic consensus to be realized in the law. And when they do it for the purposes of stroking their own egos or their vanity, or stroking their pet liberal, legal, French critical schools that have a malign view of humanity, that needs to be challenged openly, directly, and they need to be forced to explain themselves. So no more of these sort of like, I'm going to override Alberta's position on trans, boys and girls sports without a written opinion on exactly what their science is. No more overriding what we think about the mutilation of children's bodies under the age of 16 by these gender affirming, the euphemism gender affirming, castration of kids with chemicals or by knives, right? And saying that that's gender affirming care. It's not gender affirming care. We don't believe it. Most Albertans don't believe it. This judge thinks she can put that on hold. It's wrong. And it's destructive. It's destructive of young lives. It's destructive of the narrative of justice and what we're trying to do for these kids out of empathy. And so I think we have a fundamental problem that starts with the ideas that have infected the West in the critical legal school, starting in law schools, but also being realized. And I think the outcomes, like so many things, you don't know how bad these ideas are until you see the carnage of what's happening with a girl like Irina, or like a guy being killed in front of his 4-year-old daughter he's trying to protect, or what's happened with 50% of Canadians saying the country that I pay taxes in, with the principal purpose of those taxes being make me and my family secure, is failing me. Half the country thinks they can't live where they live safely. right? When you see it breaking that badly, you know there has to be a comeuppance, and I can't wait. I can't wait. Name these judges, shame these judges until I come up with a rationale on what they're saying and doing. We need to start calling these people out. I want the name of that judge. I used to know who it was that crossed us on the trans thing. I want her to stand up and explain to me why Finland is wrong, why Sweden is wrong, and why she's right on the trans issue. They've shut these clinics down. The UK shut the Tavistock clinic down. Her theory is open it back up. She's wrong. She's against the science. She's also against the democratic consensus of this province. Who is she to arrogate unto herself powers that we don't even grant a premier and elected legislative assembly? So I feel very strongly about this. This is killing this country from the inside, and it's fragmenting the country around these bizarre, weird left progressive views of people where you have to have some rent-seeking victim identity according to your sexual preferences, your ethnicity, your race, for them to take you seriously in legislation of the courts. It's got to stop. It's got to stop. It's breaking people.
Now, I mean, I could have listened to you be angry about that all day, but there are. I'm with you.
I've seen good friends face absolutely brutal situations. Friends of mine visit Calgary and they walk away saying, that was a little too weird. Mm-hmm. Calgary, we got to get a hold of this. We got a mayor's election coming up. Conservatives has got to get better at hearts and minds and making these issues serious, because we're losing our cities. These used to be the safest, best places on earth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's not just major cities. It's like next door in small town Nowheresville, Alberta. It's everywhere. But we don't need to have premiers just throwing up their hands and saying, it's the bail laws, it's the federal government. What do you want me to do? We've got Doug Ford saying that.
You have to tell the prosecutors, these are the new rule set.
Yeah. Yeah.
And if feds cross us on it, like the feds saying they're going to monitor our gender laws, they go fuck themselves. What are they going to do? They can watch us do what we're doing to save the lives of kids from these weirdos and their weird, sick leftist philosophy that a child is born in the wrong body. You want to monitor us do that? Monitor away. Why don't you monitor us cutting taxes and making this economy work as well? Monitor that, right? Monitor everything we're going to do. But one of the things you can monitor is us telling the prosecutors to do their job so that the judges are given the hardest cases to have to decide. And you can watch us tell the judges, we're going to hold you to account publicly for the things that you say we have done that are not constitutional. We're seeing you in court. We'll see you in court. Because I can tell you this, every time we decided when I was working for the premier, every time we took the feds to court, we won. We won. Monitor that, right? Yeah. Monitor that. Monitor away. Yeah, we need to get much tougher and much tighter on this. I can tell you one thing, because a lot of these judges are doing it to get their strokes in their little tiny social circuit, right? The second you start putting them up saying, explain yourself to the province, you can bet they're going to duck and run. Next time they have a hard case to make, they're going to start to make it in accordance with the public opinion that led to that legislation in the first place. Instead of trying to score points with their weird little cabal of hard left friends are going to stroke them, right? That's got to stop. And it's got to start with our political class growing some and holding people accountable for what they do.
Yeah, I mean, when I saw the premier at the Canada Strong and Free networking conference, I asked her about, Doug Ford throws his hands up and says, crime is out of control, but what do you want me to do? Well, I hope you find the guy in charge for the last 7 years, Doug. But Daniel Smith said, look, we don't prosecute people in Alberta for the crime of defending themselves. We haven't really done it since 2019. We had the opportunity to do it in 2021 when somebody shot and killed an intruder in his home in Red Deer, and they just didn't, because it isn't in the public interest. And so there are ways that premiers can do something to make things a little bit better for the citizens while the feds continue to do nothing. I'm just going to go to Jeremy real quick and then Lise real quick, and then we'll hit a break and maybe you guys can stay with us.
Sure.
Okay, perfect. Go ahead, Jeremy.
So we saw the premier speak at the Canada Strong and Free Networking Conference, and it was very clear how she stood on crime. She feels that there's a problem in this country. She feels that crime is a problem. And she's correct. In Alberta, we don't prosecute people for defending themselves. But as we saw in Ontario, Doug Ford only started caring about crime when a buddy of his got killed.
Good point.
He referred to him as a friend several times in the press conference. He was photographed with him several times the year prior. Several people in his staff called him a friend as well.
Yeah.
And we're seeing premiers across the country, including David Eby, finally get on board with things that conservatives have been saying for the past few years about crime and about bail reform. And there is a problem. It's clear. You know, we're seeing hundreds of people lining up today in St. Catharines to protest a trans child rapist who has a bail hearing today. And, you know, we're seeing Carney finally falling in line as well. Today, he announced the federal government's intent to do bail reform when Parliament gets back in September. But there is a clear issue. And it's nice, actually, I'll say, that everyone seems united on fighting crime in Canada.
Except Sean Fraser.
Except Sean Fraser.
Except the guy whose job it is.
Well, he's been quiet on it since that tweet. I think everyone sort of put him in his place on that. But we're seeing everyone united. And it's sad that it did take the death and rape of several individuals in high-profile cases to make it happen.
Yeah.
But it is finally happening, and we're seeing that swing.
Lise, I know that you hate activist, unaccountable judges as much as I do, and you know that whether it's crime, letting these guys back out on no cash bail, or trying to override the will of the people of Saskatchewan and their elected government there by allowing these trans challenges to parents' rights legislation go forward. As much as I think some Canadians might find naming and shaming judges unpalatable and American, I'm all for it.
Well, when you see the speed at which things get changed, especially as it pertains to the United States right now in taking this approach, it makes it really palatable for Canada, because we saw, David, just like you were saying, with the trans legal challenges in Alberta, the federal government funded, how many of them, Sheila? Was it 8 of the interveners in the Saskatchewan parental rights case? Yeah, the reason the federal government is monitoring what's happening in provincial courts is because they're funding the activist interveners that then get to stand in front of a judge and plead their case. And what we saw in Saskatchewan was the judiciary overruling the legislature and trying to influence public policy, even though the notwithstanding clause was wielded, and even though it should have stopped it in its tracks. The judiciary is saying, oh, but we're just going to hear everybody's side of the story and then tell you what we think. What they're doing is lining up permission for crazy leftists in the future to point back at what they say today and say, well, look, it's all justified. It's all justified. This is so upside down. It is insane. And in the new country, we're going to elect judges so that when you do have a radical activist who is only interested in their own, you know, what do you call them, David? Like their own little social circles, like their little cloistered environments, there is a way to eject these people out of our legal system. So all of these things just boil down to this is a battle between good and evil, and each one of us has to decide what side we're fighting for. Okay, you don't get to decide at this point in history that you're not going to fight, but you must decide what side you're going to fight for. So,
okay, let's hit an ad break, and then we'll come back and continue to talk about how terrible things are in this country right now. On that dark note, let's hit an ad break.
Gun bans make great distractions.
Trudeau may be gone, but Carney has picked up his same rhetoric.
We will quickly, and I mean quickly, reinvigorate the buyback of
Hunters, collectors, competitors, and defenders of tradition are still being targeted, while criminals run wild under Liberal policy. But we are fighting back. Join us, Canada's National Firearms Association, in defense of freedom.
Big news, Rebel News now has premium memberships on X, Locals, and right here on YouTube. For just $4.99 a month on YouTube, you'll get loyalty badges, custom emojis, and access to members-only chats during our live streams. At $8.99 a month, you'll also unlock Rebel News Plus shows and our documentaries. But here's the catch. YouTube could cancel that premium tier at any time. That's why the best way to support us is at rebelnewsplus.com. It's just $8 a month, cheaper if you go annual, and you'll get exclusive extras like an ad-free site, comments access, and even the chance to submit op-eds. Wherever you join us, thanks for keeping our independent journalism alive and strong.
Do you agree with me? It is time to make Canada great again. And that is why we at Rebel News have teamed up with MCGA hats to introduce, well, the fashion sensation of 2025. Oh, and by the way, these beautiful hats, they are made in Canada. We don't rely on cheap imports coming over from China. So what are you waiting for, folks? Show your pride. This is the perfect thing for a patriot to wear, or maybe there's a patriot in your life that you would like to gift such a hat. Please go to mcgahats.ca. That's mcgahats.ca. Don't be shy about it. Wear this cap. Let everybody know you want to make Canada great again.
Canadians know the national anthem. They stand in silence to remember those who died for this country. But not every Canadian knows their rights and freedoms. The Freedom Passport will change that. It looks and feels like a Canadian passport, but contains the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms in a portable, easy-to-read format. The Freedom Passport. Order one for yourself and for all the freedom lovers that you love at freedompassport.ca.
Let's get into this horrific story from Edmonton. So the Edmonton police are objecting to a decision by Crown prosecutors to offer a plea deal to a woman charged with murdering an 8-year-old Indigenous girl. Now, we don't know, because there's a publication ban here, it's very difficult to report on the details of this case, but it sounds like it is just absolutely horrific, even to the police involved, who are probably quite hardened to violence against children. They say it's an unprecedented move in which the service laid bare its dissatisfaction with the organization that prosecutes most of its cases. The EPS sent a letter to Provincial Assistant Deputy Justice Minister Kim Goddard expressing shock and horror on learning the accused is expected to plead down from first-degree murder, so premeditated, the worst kind, to manslaughter, just an oopsie doodle where a life got ended. The woman, who cannot be named under a publication ban, and so we're left to fill in the blanks about the relationship to the child, was charged by police in 2023 after the girl went missing from an Edmonton home. The girl's body was later moved to Masquachis in a hockey bag and abandoned like garbage, that's me taking liberties, but in the bed of a pickup. In the letter obtained by Post Media and released to other outlets Tuesday, EPS Executive Director of Legal Services Megan Hankowich said the Crown has offered the accused 8 years in prison as part of a plea deal with the defense. And they said the plea deal would bring the administration of justice into disrepute and constitute a significant miscarriage of justice. Were the accused convicted of first-degree murder, she would face life with no parole for 25 years. This is horrifying, but it shows that even the police have had enough with this sort of stuff, where the Crown and the justices are colluding to damage the public trust in the justice system. And, and to put it into context, I mean, for some convoy-related offenses, Crown and judges are musing about 10 years, 9 years, 10 years. So annoying the government is more of a crime than murdering a child and throwing her out like garbage. I'll go to David first.
Yeah, look, I mean, related to our previous conversation, the brilliant thing about the law, I studied law over in England, got a law degree. The brilliant thing about the law is you're required to actually write out specifically why you made the decision that you made. This is jurisprudence, right? You have to say, based on what's happened in the past in similar cases, this will anchor the logic of the decision that I'm going to make right now in this case. And it's called stare decisis. And there's a condition under which a judge makes a decision, and the judge says, I'm not just sort of, spitballing this. I'm telling you, these are the decisions that have been made in the past in similar circumstances. And what that process is meant to do, it's meant to force a judge to go through a process where they say, given these things that have existed in the past, given this evolution of the law with respect to this issue that I'm dealing with and deciding on, this will be my decision, and this is why I will make this decision. It's an extremely important part of the law, is the judges expressing what they're doing. The reason it's important is for exactly the issue that you raised, which is proportionality. So if somebody jaywalks and they continue to jaywalk, they've been told by the cop not to jaywalk, and the cop's like, okay, I'm taking you in, I'm going to book you. Like, go explain to a judge why you're a perennial jaywalker, buddy, right? You go in and you deal with that. If the jaywalker gets a longer sentence from an antagonistic judge because he happens not to like the jaywalker's politics than someone that, commits murder in the first degree, you've got a problem with proportionality. Because in the proportionality is typically what is the reasonableness standard under which the possibility that this person formed a threat to other people's welfare or would continue to form a threat to other people's welfare needs to be contained by the sentencing, right? And so if somebody actively plans to murder a child and hide their body and do a bunch of things, not only do you have all the evidence you need to enforce a proportional sentence, which is you're not allowed to be a part of society for 25 years, no exceptions, but you don't have any evidentiary problems. You don't have to guess if she's the one that did it. You don't have to guess who owned the hockey bag, where it went, what happened. So in a normal judicial process, when you have no problem with the evidence, you have no problem with determining the cause of what happened or the purpose and the motivation for the crime, and you're able to, as a judge, decide, based on what I see, there's no possible way anybody else could have done it. There's no possible excuse for having done it except for deep, dark, evil in the heart of the person that did it. As a result of that, this person is removed from society for 25 years. And in some cultures, you get the death penalty because you voted with your feet to do something so egregious, we're removing you from society permanently, right? And so if you protest a government that had arrogated unto itself a bunch of anti-scientific mandates, screwed those up, failed to operate the way that other more civilized countries did by removing those mandates in a timely manner, and you protest that in the capital city, and the government that screwed up those mandates and ultimately ended up removing them 3 months after your protest anyway, decides they don't like the fact that you dissented from them, they want to make you a public example of you, and they bend the law to give you a longer incarceration period than somebody that murdered a child in a premeditated way in the first degree. You fracture the law, but you also fracture the point of jurisprudence and the explanation of law in general. And again, in this country, we have a legal philosophy that has been hijacked by people that have an ideology. And part of their ideology is about their own personal control and about the control of their ideological perspectives on things. And if you challenge that through dissent, they're going to try and punish you to try and keep others from challenging through dissent. But that's not a valid legal basis for a match between whatever crime you committed, if it's mischief, and the actual charges or time you have to serve. And so I think at the heart of this problem that we see in Edmonton is what we related to previously. The law itself has been broken by an ideology that is broken. And then in addition to that, we have judges that have absorbed that ideology and live by that ideology, and they further break the law by not abiding by the rules of the law, which is explaining the proportionality of their decisions by virtue of explaining other things. And so when this happens, you're going to get more and more Canadians thinking to themselves, I don't trust the system. I can't trust the police because they ultimately are the ones that are held by these judges in this system. I can't trust Crown prosecutors. I can't trust these judges. Why not? Because instead of doing the things judges are supposed to do to secure the fact that their decisions are being made objectively with respect to what's happened in the past and what the law says, they're actually being political activists that will punish me for my politics or my perspective. and they'll let people that have done truly evil things off the hook because they've lost all kinds of moral objectivity and moral norms. And if you allow the law to become subjective to politics instead of rooted in the objectivity of jurisprudence and precedent and force to explain what they're doing, you begin to basically betray the population that you're supposed to protect. And when that happens, you can expect that the next time that somebody does something that to somebody else's little 8-year-old girl, they're not going to rely on the law anymore. They're going to make sure that person serves more than 25 years, 6 feet under. Yeah. And you're going to have to guess how they killed that person, but you're never going to find out because they're going to hire somebody who knows how to do it and never get caught. And you're going to have vigilantes everywhere because you have to just ask yourself, if it's within your power, whoever this woman is, you know, and again, I don't know the case and I don't want to, but if it's within your power and you find out there's this collusive, sick, twisted judicial philosophy that allows her to get off the hook, get 8 years and be out in 5, and you see them in the street, the chances that if it was my little niece, that she would live that long without me wanting to find a way to see justice done, you know, very low. And that's a hard thing to say, but I think what you're going to see is when people have watched this film of Irina Zarutska getting murdered in cold blood, the natural, and maybe you're speaking as a guy, the natural tendency is to just wish you had been on that bus. Wish you had been on that train. Just wish. You wish you'd been there to stop the damage, stop the sick brutality, the darkness, right? You do everything in your power to do that. If we can't rely on the system to do that retroactively anymore, you're going to see more and more people decide that they're going to take the law into their own hands. And the degree of people being creative in serving revenge cold in their own way is the reason why we have judges and systems and laws and why we have judicial, because we don't want a society that's based on an eye for an eye and mercenary responses to things like this. But this legal philosophy is flirting with a very dangerous moment because when you have this much injustice going on, people's cry for justice, it's their innate passion to see justice done, will convert itself into activism. And that's a dangerous place for society to be in. But, you know, we're not seeing a system that's able to handle these things. And this is across the West at this point.
I want to go to Jeremy real quick. You know, a lot of the Liberals will not shut up about Indigenous reconciliation, but what does it say about a system that values a little Indigenous girl's life, 8 years old? Her life is worth 8 years behind bars. I can't even believe that I'm reading this headline, and good for the police for taking this unprecedented step of calling out the officials for what they're doing here. Jeremy, to you.
So over the past few decades, we've seen a real problem with missing and murdered Indigenous women. And we can talk all we want about reconciliation. The government can put forward press conferences, they can talk, but there is a real problem. And the fact that this person who murdered a little girl is getting out after, as David said, 5 to 8 years is frankly a failure of the legal system. This person poses a significant threat, not only to society at large, but to Indigenous communities as a whole. You know, when someone goes in and kills a member of your community, it does irreparable damage to not only the families, but the community at large. And reconciliation is great, and talking is great, and press conferences, when there's significant impact on the communities themselves, and we're just not seeing anything done about it, there's going to be a distrust of the government.
Another flaw in our system is that there was a publication ban on this story to begin with, because when a publication ban is ordered by the judge, it sort of ensures the narrative control or the control of the ideological control of the court, that nobody has the details about this case because it was ordered, shut down at the very beginning. It is part of the problem. it goes so deep that Edmonton police said that they will release details about the case so the public can decide whether a manslaughter plea was appropriate or not. And we should encourage Edmonton police to do exactly that, because if the public doesn't have the facts of the case, they can't make a moral or ethical decision on if we should support this kind of sentencing. And I think we can all agree 8 years for the life of a child is woefully inadequate, almost criminally inadequate. And that again, this just goes back to good and evil. Is this a society that we want to promote and live in, where child murderers can be off the hook in 8 years? Is this what we want for us? If the answer is no, we need some massive judicial reform to make sure that these cases don't go this way. And I'll just end by saying I really do hope that Edmonton Police Service does release the details of this case so the Canadian public can get their minds around it.
Yeah, I think we need to know the evil that was allegedly, don't sue me, committed here. And, you know, I understand why publication bans end up in place, of course, to protect the victim, but the victim is deceased here. We want to protect the jury pool if the first-degree murder charges go forward, and I hope they do. But at the same time, I know a lot about Danny Senecal in Welland, Ontario, and what he did and what he's accused of. So I don't know why we can't know what is so outraging the police here. I believe it is in the public interest to know. I'm trying to hit everything that's in the headline here as we rapidly run out of time. Doug Ford being Doug Ford. So let's go with something a little bit lighter than what we've been talking about. He's pulling the old look inside yourself, Rosemary, but to young people right now. He apparently has a direct line with Mark Carney, and Mark Carney is just dumping low-skilled temporary foreign workers into the Canadian economy and just saying, sorry about your luck, young people. And Doug Ford has said, if you're struggling to find employment in Ontario, well, perhaps the problem is you and not the immutable law of supply and demand. And he says that they aren't looking hard enough, even as Statistics Canada reports a surge in joblessness across the province. And he said this before the Ontario Region Board of Trade breakfast. Well, that's why he said it. These are the CFIB types who want all the low-skilled, low-paid workers to just take up all the jobs down at the Wendy's and the Tim Hortons. Well, I don't know if Wendy's uses them, but definitely Boston Pizza and the Tim Hortons. I'll go to David on this.
Look, I think the underlying problem, I think the comments that Premier Ford's making and a lot of what Mark Carney's talking about right now, the problem with it is these are second order conversations. The first order problem is that we have an economy that has the lowest GDP of all the advanced economies. It has the worst performance, except for a small city state, of the top 40 economies in the world over 10 years. It's got the lowest GDP per capita in the G7, the OECD. We're on track to be the worst performer. The combination of massive federal bureaucratic growth, where it's 75% more expensive than it used to be, 40% larger, and all of the outcomes of government bureaucracy have actually, over that period of massive expansion and bureaucratic obesity, have actually declined in outcomes, right? You have at the same time, and that's a GDP killer, anytime you borrow money and you take that borrowed money, which you have to pay back with interest, and you use it to create a perpetual government position, you now have structurally reset the economy in a way that you can't get out of. And so we've got an overtaxed economy, an overborrowed economy, an economy that then, in order to make up for that gap, with their green policies, have made it very hard for people to come in and hire. And so what you've got now is you've got a government that, instead of creating the conditions for hiring, which are normal, which is what we reversed in Alberta by cutting the corporate tax rate, which is why we have growth in the economy and why we have growth in jobs, they've created an economy where there's no viral growth anymore. The conditions for growing are gone. And here's a fun fact about Alberta. Back when we cut the corporate tax from 12 to 8, the left threw up their hands saying, that's what you guys do. We've grown the corporate tax revenues under 12, the corporate tax revenues are around 4 billion. At 8%, third lower, the corporate tax revenues are over 7 billion. How did that happen? Because when you cut taxes, corporations come in and start hiring. We've had the fastest job growth. Last year, Alberta was 80% of all the private sector hiring in the entire country. Okay. And so is the conditions for private capital coming in and creating new businesses, growing those businesses and hiring people aren't there. And when you don't have that oxygen in the system because you've created all these rules, regulations, and taxes that make it impossible for people to want to put risk capital to work, then what you end up with is this sad state where the Liberals trying to make up for their dead economy are trying to put this like little sugar shot of low cost foreign employees that come in this temporary foreign work program. It's not going to work. It's one of the reasons this economy is going to fall apart. The only way out is cutting taxes and doing things the Liberals are incapable of doing, which is why I think Mark Carney's days are numbered.
From your lips to God's ears. Yeah, he went on to say that, I assure you, if you look hard enough, it may be in fast food or something else, but you'll find a job. I'm not sure that's true. I saw the lineups for the CNE job fair and they were like enormous. And those were for temporary short-term jobs. I'll go to Jeremy. You seem like a much younger person than me. And I think you probably have a closer thumb on the pulse of this than I do. It is bad out there for young people. Like my son has got a career. He's not an entry-level worker anymore. But I think it's tough out there for the young people to get a job anywhere, but I think extra bad in Ontario.
So I'm actually from Ontario originally.
Oh, then you know.
As a young man who's from Ontario, it's brutal out there.
Yeah.
You know, just speaking from experiences of being someone who graduated recently, knowing people who are currently in the job market, you know, even friends from journalism school who are out there looking for jobs getting into the media industry, and CBC's out there hiring temporary foreign workers.
Right.
You know, it is rough. And I think Doug Ford saying all you need to do is look harder for a job isn't quite talking to the people who are sending out 300, 400 applications and not getting a single email back. You know, there is a real problem. And when almost equivalent numbers of Canadians are losing their jobs as we hire temporary foreign workers last year, it just doesn't make sense. It's companies wanting to take advantage of weak policy to then take advantage of the workers that they're getting from abroad, make them work crazy hours, and treat them as if they are less than a Canadian worker. You know, people are paying quote unquote $36 an hour to temporary foreign workers to manage a Subway or a Baskin Robbins or a Starbucks. But
Yeah.
are those people really getting paid $36 an hour and being treated the same as a Canadian worker, or are they getting taken advantage of? And I'm actually currently working on looking into some of those policies and some of those practices and some of those businesses. You know, Michelle Rempel-Garner has had an excellent Twitter series where she goes over and goes through businesses that are using temporary foreign workers and paying them egregious sums. And I've been looking through the Canada Jobs database for positions that are available for temporary foreign workers. And I'm seeing positions that are getting paid $300,000 a year to be a therapist or a psychiatrist that are getting offered to temporary foreign workers. It seems like young Canadians are being, as young people would say, gatekeeped from entering the job market.
Yeah.
Because what I thought Doug Ford was in that moment was just so patronizing, like what we didn't hear from Doug Ford was any solutions or what he was going to do to tackle this issue, right? Like he didn't go ahead and say, you know what, that's a really great point. We're going to establish a youth workforce task force to try and unpick this for the young people of Ontario. He didn't say that because Doug Ford is simultaneously at the same time dealing with mass layoffs in his steel and aluminum sectors because of his antagonistic, terrible take on the American tariff wars or trade dispute with America. But no, what a what a buffoony thing to say. Like, Doug Ford remains the Helen Keller of political tone deafness in Canada
Yeah.
for the things he says off the cuff. And he shouldn't be allowed near a podium.
You know, all he's got going for him is stage presence. Even if it's bad, he's like a bad karaoke singer where you just want to watch, but everything that's happening is terrible, and it's just an abuse of your senses. Every time I listen to him, that's what I get. But I just pulled up the data out of the corner of my eye from our friends at Juno, who said that Ford's remarks came days after Statistics Canada reported Ontario had lost 26,000 jobs in August. The most of any province. I guess those people just aren't looking hard enough either. Ontario's unemployment rate dipped to 7.7% in August from 7.9%, not due to job growth, but due to something that David pointed out earlier. People are just giving up. They're just losing hope. And then youth unemployment in Ontario rose to 16.5% in August from 16% in July, significantly higher than the national youth rate at 14.5%. This is how bad it's gotten, though. In July 2022, the province's youth jobless rate was 10.1%. I guess they're just not looking hard enough.
Just got to try harder. Look within yourselves, kids.
Look within yourself, Rosemary. I think we've hit the end of the show. I'm so grateful for the gentlemen who agreed to stay on the entirety of the show. Thank you, David Legg and
Pleasure.
Jeremy Borg from Western Standard. We appreciate you guys and your takes so much.
Thank you for having me.
You got it. Great to see you guys.
Yeah,
Great to
thank
see
you. Thanks, guys. Do we have any chats, Olivia? One just came in. You know, I could listen to David Legg talk all day.
Those shit, like every Buffalo panel seems to be my favorite Buffalo panel, but today's Buffalo panel was absolutely my favorite Buffalo panel. So thanks so much to Jeremy and David for joining us. It was just a fascinating conversation. More of this, please, Sheila Gunn Reid. Like
Right,
more
exactly.
of this energy for us. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I think we might even be adding a guest to the Tuesday show.
Ooh, I love this.
Forward, like a regular one. We'll see how it goes. We're just working on something in the background. We've got one from our friend, a chat from our friend Nana Awake, who is she's paying the electricity bill for us with her donations every day. She's keeping the lights on. $10 says this low Canadian employment isn't just affecting youth anymore. Stop the subsidies. This creates a discrimination against all Canadians of all ethnicities in the system, driving no equality in Canada. Yeah, people just want the equality of opportunity. Every time somebody says equity, I'm like, nope, I'm not listening anymore. But I think Canadians deserve the equality of opportunity, and they just don't have that right now because cheap foreign labor is being incentivized. And have you ever wondered why everything is $36 an hour? I think we're going to back a little bit because there's a reason everybody uses that number.
It's so interesting in those job posting boards that we look at. Yeah.
I think everybody in this country is making $36 an hour.
I mean, we should be filthy rich.
There's a reason they choose that number, and I'm working on that. So stay tuned. I think that's the show for today, Olivia. Yeah. Yeah, let us know in the comments, you guys, if you appreciated the conversation with the Jeremy Borg from Western Standard and David Legg as much as we did.
Yeah, compliment them in the comments, would you? Send along your best compliments.
Usually I find myself to be the overly annoyingly verbose host of the show, but I was like, just keep going.
I was just happy to be like this. Just mute my microphone. Just the best.
Oh, because everything that's bad, David takes back to a culture war. And I'm like, yes, exactly. Yes. Yep.
Oh, the man speaks my language. Like it is a new dialect and he speaks it. The end. Yeah.
And it's
I liked everything about it.
Jeremy, just a young feller who, like, I love seeing these young journalists who are really actively engaged in making Canada a better place, because sometimes you feel like the young people are crazy.
Yeah. And you know what I love? Do you know what I love is luring conservatives from sort of the Laurentian Triangle West. Like,
Right.
come west, young people, come west. We have a place for you here. You'll find a happy home. I love that. And I also love that he writes for the Western Standard. I also sometimes write for the Western Standard.
Yes.
So this was a nice little happy collab today between
Yeah.
Rebel and Western Standard.
I love getting a good refugee from Ontario because, as you know, the West is not just a geographical location, but it is a way of being. And so
Yeah.
I feel like there are a lot of Westerners who are just lost in Ontario,
Yeah.
not realizing that there is a home.
Yeah. I'm really
let's-
happy that Jeremy came before
Mhm.
the new country where he would have to immigrate. You know what I mean? Relatively easy to head west now. Before that happened, but no, we love to have those young
You know what?
people from
I look
Ontario
forward to the
finding
days-
their way.
I'll be stamping the passports at Portage La Prairie. That's
I have like a little highway customs booth. You know what I mean? Yeah, it'll be great. I can
Because
just
the
make
little
my
booth. What did they do with the booths when they closed the Coca-Cola? Remember the Coca-Cola highway, and you had to pay the
toll.
The toll. What happened to those booths? Oh, let's repurpose them because we are conservatives and we must conserve and recycle. And I would very much like to use those booths where I would stamp the passports at Portage La Prairie and maybe just this side of Chilliwack.
Yeah,
That's the new country.
Just like that. I can't wait. I hope that our new passport stamp is disproportionately huge.
Oh, I hope it.
Just officious and
like an anvil.
Yes. Yes.
We have. Where is? We had something that you wanted us to watch, and you said she sounds like
you guys.
Selma.
You guys have to watch this. This is the most incredible thing. So we're going to introduce you. We're going to introduce you, Canada, right now, to the mayor of Las Vegas.
The mayor of Las Vegas, Shelley Berkeley.
Shelley Berkeley has some things to say to the people of Canada. Listen up.
She looks like a less crazy Nancy Pelosi. Like, I feel like that she for sure goes to bingo. She's down at Caesar's Palace at the bingo for sure.
She's a Keno player. If I was a betting woman, this is a Keno player. Shelley is the 23rd mayor of Las Vegas, Nevada. She's been in politics a very, very long time. She is a Democrat, but she definitely has a message for Canadians right now, and I just love this for us. Here we go. Oh, here she is. You're gonna love her.
A convergence of events right now. It's the economy is slow nationwide. Consequently, people are, keeping what money they have close, just in case things get worse or they lose their jobs. So I understand that. We have, as you know, there's less or a downturn of international visitors, which I'm very sorry about. We rely in part on Canadian tourism, and we love the Canadians, and we want them to come back and enjoy Las Vegas and everything that we have to offer. And so as the mayor of Las Vegas, I'm telling everybody in Canada, please come. We love you, we need you, and we miss you. So those are two things. Also, there is a concern that we, not the city of Las Vegas, but gaming industry in general, is nickel and diming people. They don't like it. And I think that's going to self-correct. I mean, if you have to pay $70 for valet parking, you're going to find out very quickly that people don't want to pay $70 for parking.
I like her, and I like how she talks nice to us Canadians like Trump talks nice to us Canadians, so we're beloved.
Did you hear what she said? She said she loves us.
Yeah.
She loves Canadians. She wants us back in Las Vegas. Shelley.
And now
After this, I'm going to call your office. Okay, I'm going to call your office and we're going to figure out how to bring the Canadians back to Vegas. Because, yes, of course, it's the best. Do you remember, Canada?
What are those big, long cigarettes?
I don't know, but I bet they're available in America, and I'm going to get them when I go to Las Vegas. This is
I think
Shelley.
So now I mean this in the nicest way possible, even though she's a Democrat and she's got a bit of a Pelosi face.
Yeah.
I mean this in the nicest way possible. But you know who she instantly reminded me of?
Who?
Greta the Gremlin from Gremlins 2. And I mean this in the nice, because 50% of the days I feel like Greta the Gremlin, okay? But I think she's the thing about Greta is she's the only gremlin that survives at the end. And so
so she's a tenacious
scrappy
gremlin.
little thing. And as she was talking, I was like, oh,
not an insult, Shelley.
No, it's not. It's not.
It's a
You're a
compliment.
survivor, Shelley. And you are absolute, like even the green outfit. Like, come on.
Just perfect. Absolutely, absolutely perfect look, Shelley. I just thought this was adorable for many, many different reasons. And it made me think back to a time when Canadians actually had Las Vegas money. Remember when we all used to have Las Vegas money?
It was a $400 weekend. It was like a $400 weekend. You could fly down there super cheap on a Thursday. You'd be back on Sunday night, stay in a hotel, and it was part of your flight package. Like Sunwing did those flight packages all the time.
Yes.
You didn't need to be rich. You just had to have a couple of bucks in your pocket.
This is the kind of money we had. Las Vegas money 10 years ago, but Las Vegas has changed a lot in those 10 years too.
It's gussied up a little.
Oh, it's the add-on charges are absolutely hideous for Canadian. And when Canadians are paying, 25 to 30% on the dollar, like when our exchange rate is so poor, it makes it really, really hard to come to Las Vegas, Shelley. So do something about some of those overcharges. And Canadians
She's saying that stuff is going to correct itself. The nickel and diming, the $70 valet parking. Shelley, you're speaking our language.
You got a problem. We have the solution. Okay.
Right. And she does. Like instantly I saw her. I was like, even with those little clips in her hair, it's like the gremlin ears.
She's one of us. She's one of us.
All right.
No, I would love to get back to a place where we could all go to Vegas. The end. I mean,
road trip to Vegas.
Absolutely. Yes.
Okay. We got one last chat and then we'll wrap it up because I got a few things to get through before my day is over. We got C70 Angus gives us $5 and says, I kick my own ass for not coming to the oil patch in the late 70s after applying for jobs. Go west, young man.
Mm-hmm. Let's go. This way. Come on.
This way.
Mm-hmm.
Just
single file, Ontario, single file.
But don't Ottawa, our west. You know what I mean?
No, we don't want import bad liberal ideas into our fortress.
Yeah, don't California or Texas. Don't do that. Mm-hmm. Okay, I think that's it for the show today. Special thanks to the gentlemen, David Knight Legg and Jeremy Borg for their insight on the panel today. They're super generous with their time. Usually we only get a half an hour of our guest time. They give us over an hour. That was great. Lise, as always, thanks for a very special Tuesday and Wednesday with you.
Oh, well, you're so welcome. I'll see you next Tuesday.
Yeah, you got it. Livia and everybody who works behind the scenes to put the show together, thank you so much. All of you who pitch in a little bit to keep the lights on here at Rebel News. And for those of you who do the very free but very effective thing of sharing our content and engaging with our content, because that helps us in the mighty, mighty algorithms. The more engaged with our content is, the more it's shared, the more they serve it up in front of more people. Mm-hmm. So it just is a big snowball effect and it costs you absolutely nothing. So we appreciate those of you who do that. I think that's it for the show today. I think I'm hosting tomorrow with someone. And if you find us offensive, maybe don't find us at all.
Oh, hi, it's Ezra Levant here in Toronto with an important message because we need your help. Independent journalism in Canada is under attack. Government censors, big tech deplatformers, and the dying legacy media are all working together to maintain exclusive control on the information you receive. They don't want you to hear other voices like ours, and they really don't want you to be informed and to think for yourself. That's why the work we do here at Rebel News is so important. Our on-the-ground reporting, independent news shows, and special content you won't find anywhere else. It's all designed to give you trustworthy information and alternative viewpoints so you can decide for yourself. We don't get government money, and we are not owned by some big global conglomerate. We're funded by people just like you, so please support independent journalism and help us continue our work by subscribing. and becoming a Rebel News Plus member today, right here on the page. Go to rebelnewsplus.com. Members get instant access to all of our shows, invitations to exclusive events, and access to our premium content like live event footage and documentaries you won't see anywhere else. Only Rebel News Plus members can join the conversation by participating in the comments section of our new website. That way you can have your say too. More than anything, though, you'll be able to take pride in supporting real, honest journalism, and you'll help our talented team continue to do the work to push back on the establishment. We really can use your help. We need it, in fact. So thank you, and enjoy Rebel News Plus.